My in-laws were set to inherit millions, and they howled with laughter when the family lawyer handed me a single cheap-looking tie clip. My brother-in-law patted my shoulder and said it was all I deserved. But their laughter died the second the lawyer cleared his throat and explained the document that came attached to that small piece of metal. My father-in-law, Richard, was a man of quiet dignity. An engineer by trade, he built a comfortable life through smart, careful decisions. He wasn't flashy, and he valued substance over style, a lesson the rest of his family completely missed. I'm talking about my wife's brother, David, and his wife, Karen, who could have won an Olympic gold medal in smugness. To them, Richard wasn't a father. He was a walking bank account they were just waiting to cash out. From the day I married his daughter, Sarah, I was an outsider. It wasn't open hostility, just a polite, dismissive condescension. I was the guy who worked with his hands, a contractor. In their world of pedigrees and white-collar jobs, I just didn't measure up. In the last few years of Richard's life, as his health failed, I was the one who showed up. I'd drive him to doctor's appointments. I'd sit with him on the porch, not saying much, just sharing the quiet afternoon. We talked about old cars and woodworking things his own son had zero interest in. David and Karen would visit, sure, but their visits were always short, always punctuated by them not so subtly sizing up the house. The antique furniture, the art, they were vultures circling, and they weren't even trying to hide it. Richard saw it all. He never said a word against his son, but I'd catch the disappointment in his eyes after they left. He'd just give me this knowing look and a sad, small smile. He knew who was there because they cared, and who was there to take inventory. I thought he was just a kind old man, resigned to his family's greed. I had no idea he was planning one final, brutal lesson in what it means to be truly wealthy. The lawyer's office was exactly what you'd picture: dark wood, leather-bound books, and an air of suffocating formality. Richard's lawyer, Mr. Henderson, had called us all in. He explained on the phone that Richard had made an unusual request for a final meeting to personally outline his wishes. This was not the mythical reading of the will from the movies, but a formal notification of the will's contents, which had already been filed with the probate court. It all felt a bit theatrical, and I could see David and Karen were practically vibrating with excitement. Mr. Henderson, a man who looked as old as the books on his shelves, began, "As you know," he said in a dry, monotone voice, "Richard's will must pass through probate, a process that takes several months. However, he wanted the intended distribution to be made clear to you all today. He started with the big one, the family home, a beautiful property on several acres. The house and its contents are bequeathed to my son, David," he read. Karen squeezed David's arm, a triumphant smirk plastering her face. Next came the stock portfolio and finally the cash accounts. All to David. Millions. Just like that. David sat up straighter, puffing out his chest. My wife, Sarah, and I just looked at each other. We expected it, but it still stung. Then Mr. Henderson looked over at me. "And for my son-in-law," he read, his voice steady, "who shared his time when others could not. Richard left the item in this box for you to have today." He slid a small navy blue velvet box across the polished table. It was tiny. I opened it. Inside, nestled in cheap satin, was a simple, silver-colored tie clip. It looked like a freebie you'd get with a bottle of cologne. The silence lasted maybe 3 seconds. Then David erupted. Not a chuckle, a loud, barking laugh that bounced off the walls. Karen joined in with a high-pitched giggle. "A tie clip," David roared, wiping a tear from his eye. "Oh, that's perfect. Dad always did have a sense of humor." Karen leaned forward, her voice dripping with fake sympathy. "Well, it's something to remember him by. I guess some people just aren't worth more." I felt my face flush hot. My jaw was clenched so tight I thought my teeth might crack. But I remembered Richard, his quiet dignity. I took the box, closed the lid, and looked Mr. Henderson right in the eye. "Thank you," I said. my voice quiet but firm. "I'll cherish it." The laughter died as Mr. Henderson cleared his throat, a sharp sound that sliced through the smugness in the room. His expression was completely blank, which was somehow more intimidating. "Now," the lawyer said, his gaze fixed on me, "there is one final matter." He paused, letting the words hang in the air. "Richard also left this for you." He reached into his briefcase and pulled out a thick manila envelope sealed with a wax stamp. He slid it across the table to me. David scoffed. "What's that? The warranty for the tie clip?" Mr. Henderson ignored him. "This document," the lawyer continued, "is the charter for a private, revocable living trust established by Richard nearly 5 years ago. Assets held in a trust are not subject to the probate process and are administered privately." My hands trembled a little as I broke the wax seal. Inside was a legal document, and on top of it, a handwritten letter in Richard's familiar script. I started to read it aloud, my voice shaking. "My dear son," it began, "if you are reading this, it means you have shown the character I always knew you possessed. I have watched my family for years, and I saw their hearts. They value appearances, not substance. That tie clip is worthless, I know, but your graciousness is priceless. It proved my legacy would be safe with you." I looked up, my eyes blurry. Karen was pale. David's face was a mask of confusion and dawning horror. "The will you just heard about," I said, my voice getting stronger, "was a formality, a performance." Mr. Henderson picked it up from there, looking at a summary sheet. "Correct. Years ago, Richard began transferring the vast majority of his liquid assets and his entire investment portfolio into the RM Legacy Trust. As of this morning, the assets held in that trust are valued at just over $14 million. He let that number hang in the air. $14 million. "The trust document," he said, tapping the envelope in front of me, "names you as the sole beneficiary and, upon my signature, the new trustee. The trust is the legal owner of those assets. The will only governs what was left outside of it. The tie clip wasn't a key. Your character was—" The silence was deafening. Then it shattered. "What?" Karen shrieked. $14 million? This is a joke. A sick prank." David shot to his feet, his face turning a blotchy red. He pointed a trembling finger at me, then at the lawyer. "You can't do this. He was our father. We'll contest this. This is undue influence. We'll sue everyone." Mr. Henderson didn't even flinch. He simply gestured to the will documents on the table. "Richard anticipated that reaction," he said calmly. "The will contains an ironclad no-contest clause. If any beneficiary challenges the will, they immediately forfeit any bequests from it. So, by all means, file a suit to contest the will. But if you do, the house and the remaining funds will be donated to the National Humane Society, per Richard's instructions." They were trapped, completely trapped by their own greed. To get the house, they had to silently accept that they'd been outmaneuvered. They had to watch me walk away with everything they had ever schemed for. David collapsed back into his chair, a strangled noise escaping his throat. Karen just stared, her mouth opening and closing like a fish. The smugness, the arrogance, the years of looking down on me, it all dissolved in an instant, replaced by the ugly face of pure rage. They had laughed at my cheap gift, but the joke was on them. They took the house. We later learned the property taxes were more than they could handle, and the small bank account left to them was almost entirely drained to cover Richard's final expenses. We never spoke again. Sarah, horrified but not surprised by her brother's behavior, stood by me. Together, we decided how to truly honor her father. We established a charitable foundation in his name to fund trade school scholarships and community workshops. We used his wealth not to buy yachts, but to build things, something I think he would have really liked. It just goes to show, sometimes the smallest gifts carry the greatest weight. And a person's true worth is revealed not by what they're given, but by how they receive it.